Okay, we are going to induct Slava Kozlov into the THG Hall of Fame. I'm going to discuss this guy's career. His fame, his profile has increased with the Russian 5 discussions that have been going around. And of course, he was part of the Detroit version of the Russian 5. And he was one of the first wave of Russians that came over when the Russians didn't really want to give up their young kids. The young kids were like, yeah, well, we're going. He was one of the ones that said, yeah, I'm going. He's drafted 45th overall in 1990. And he would end up defecting to North America with the help of Scotty Bowman in Detroit. Prior to that, he was involved in a crash. A bus ran into his car. The other occupant of the vehicle was killed in the accident. And there was brain trauma, and there was some concern that he would never play hockey. He needed facial reconstruction. We're talking massive injuries here. The fact that he played in the NHL at all is kind of a testament to his willpower and physical strength and all that other wonderful stuff that athletes have that the rest of us just dream of having at the amounts that they have it. 91-92, after defecting, he did play 7 games, got 2 assists. This is when Detroit was very slowly bringing guys in. 92-93, 17 games played, 4 goals, 1 assist. He would play in the playoffs, 4 games and 2 assists in the playoffs. So again, he's being slowly brought into the lineup, but they know what they have with him. 93-94, he gets to play. He plays 77 games that year, 34 goals, 39 assists, 73 points. 7 games in the playoffs, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. Now this is where the Red Wings are a very, very good team that can't get over the hump of the playoffs, and everybody mocks them and says things about the fact they can't win when they need to. Those postseason failures get dumped at the feet of Steve Yzerman at that point more than anybody else. But the Russians that they have on this team now will be a part of things turning around. 94-95, he plays 46 games, 13 goals, 20 assists, 33 points. Now this is a lockout shortened season. In the playoffs, the Red Wings reach the finals. He plays 18 games, 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points. So very good playoffs for him, but it's overshadowed by the fact that they reach the finals and they're pretty easily swept aside by the New Jersey Devils. So 95-96, he plays 82 games, 36 goals, 37 assists, 73 points. 19 games in the playoffs, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. This time, they were knocked out by the eventual Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. So the storyline is still the Detroit Red Wings can't win when they need to. Going to need to do just tear it all apart. They're too old. They're too slow. 96-97, they beg to differ. 75 games played by Kozlov, 23 goals, 22 assists, 45 points. So his offense is low. However, in the playoffs, he plays 20 games, 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points, and the Stanley Cup. Now, part of this fabled Russian 5 with Fedorov, Fetisov, Larionov, and Konstantinov. This is the Detroit version of the Russian 5. Konstantinov is involved in a car accident that leaves him in a wheelchair. And so 97-98, they kind of dedicate to him. And Kozlov's a big part here. Plays 80 games, 25 goals, 27 assists, 52 points. In the 98 playoffs, he plays 22 games, 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points. And back-to-back Stanley Cups. So, up until very recently, when the Pittsburgh Penguins broke that trend, this was your last back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. 98-99, 79 games played. 29 goals, 29 assists, 58 points. 10 games played in the playoffs, 6 goals, 1 assist, 7 points. 99-2000, 72 games, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points, 8 games in the playoffs, 2 goals, 1 assist. And it's seen that Kozlov's probably played his best games. Maybe his best numbers are behind him. 2000-2001 doesn't really change that narrative. 72 games played, 20 goals, 18 assists, 38 points. 6 games played in the playoffs, 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. And the 5 have mostly dispersed at this stage. And he is part of the disbursement. June 30th, 2001, he is traded with the 2002 first-round pick, which became Jim Slater, for Dominik Hasek. So Hasek goes to Detroit in an effort to win a Stanley Cup. He goes to Buffalo, and in an injury-shortened season, plays 38 games, 9 goals, 13 assists, 22 points. Never really gets it going with Buffalo. So the following summer, Buffalo says, fine, we're ready to move on. So June 22nd, 2002, he was traded with a 2002 second-round pick in exchange for a 2002 second and a third-round pick. So basically, Buffalo gets a couple of picks, giving up a pick in Kozlov. Not really seen as a big deal at the time. Kozlov arrives with the Atlanta Thrashers. Everybody's career dies with the Thrashers, or at least that's how we remember it. It's not true with Kozlov. Kozlov's numbers are best when he's with the Thrashers. 79 games played that first year, 2002-2003. 21 goals, 49 assists, 70 points. 70, the most points he had recorded in a season since 95-96. And some players get better with age. 2003-2004, plays 76 games, 20 goals, 32 assists, 52 points. We then have the lockout wipe out the entire 2004-2005 season. Otherwise, he may have played a lot longer. He may have had another 80 games. He may have had another 50 points. He may have crossed the 900-point barrier in his career. Comes back after the lockout, 2005-2006. This is now 15 years after he's been drafted. 82 games, 25 goals, 46 assists, 71 points. So after a down season with 52, he goes right back up to 70. And then 06-07, he records a career high. 81 games, 28 goals, 52 assists, 80 points. This is the year Atlanta goes to the playoffs. And yes, they've got home ice. Everything's going to be great. They're playing the Rangers. Rangers are on their way down. Oh, whoops, they got swept. The good news is Kozlov played every single game that the Atlanta Thrashers ever played in the playoffs. The bad news is he was held off the score sheet and they were swept. So there's a good news, bad news with this. The year after, 2007-2008, plays 82 games, 17 goals, 24 assists, 41 points. And I remember reading the books that talk about your fantasy hockey saying, all right, finally, age has taken its toll on Kozlov. He's finally starting to play like we figured he would. His numbers have dropped 40 points. You can only expect 40, maybe 35 next year. 2008-2009, he defies the aging process again. 82 games, 26 goals, 50 assists, 76 points. Crazy to see how his points totals with Atlanta were better than in Detroit. Now, in Detroit, he's more of a support player than he is in Atlanta. Atlanta, he can play on the first line. He can play with Kovalchuk. But still, pretty impressive how his points totals went. 2009-2010 was his last year in the NHL. 55 games played, 8 goals, 18 assists, 26 points. Which totals up to 1,182 games, 356 goals, 497 assists, 853 points. In the playoffs, 118 games played, 42 goals, 37 assists, 79 points. He's in that no man's land. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. It depends. Like, he's got the Stanley Cups. He's got the fact that he's part of this Russian five, and how many of these guys are in the Hall of Fame. He has the fact that when he went to Atlanta, he seemed to get better as he got older. He did finish with 853 points, but is that enough? And if you include Kozlov, do you have to look back to previous years and look at a guy like Bobby Smith? Look at a guy like Tim Kerr, Brian Propp? Do you look at that first? It's an interesting conversation to have. For me, if I had a vote, I would probably not have Kozlov on my ballot as a guy that I would pick. That being said, maybe at some point, due to the back-to-back cups, due to the overall numbers, he ends up getting an inclusion into the Hall of Fame. I would be interested to know what other people think. So you guys can let me know in the comment section below what you think. He had a nice long career. And really, yeah, in all honesty, he was also part of that first wave of Russians that came over. And it feels like there were more Russians in the league in the 90s than there are now. I haven't done the research on that, but it feels like it. And that there's less of a deal made of it. Back then it was major. I remember when there was the Iron Curtain and you had the Soviets play different. So part of the reason why Scotty Bowman would put these five together is simple. Scotty Bowman saw them in the 80s too. The way that the Russians passed the puck around with ease, and they all seemed to know where they were going to be next, and just this ability to control the game and to play an entire shift in the other team's end and never give up the puck. It was a sight to behold, and Kozlov was part of that in Detroit. And I don't know. At some point, that deserves some kind of a mention in the Hall of Fame if it's not already. Like, I don't know, like a style of play. And this style of play has become far more prevalent now than it was back then. A lot of the pretty passing plays you see now, and a lot of what some people who like the physical side and the fighting side of the game don't like, is that it really has become more of a skill game. I would think that if Kozlov came into the game now, his points totals would probably be higher. He probably would have played better. He played through the tough checking before the lockout wiped out season, I should say, of 04-05. He played during all the clutching and grabbing, and he still put up decent totals. So, would have been interesting to see how he would have done in this era. Let me know what you guys think about that as well. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And welcome to the THG Hall of Fame, Slava Kozlov. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.